is Wassa Bagayoko, and I'm a sophomore from New York City. My parents are from Mali, a large landlocked country in Western Africa. It is a part of the Sahel, which means in the north it's mostly desert, but in the south the Niger River gives the land life and has sustained families for generations. My father is one of those families. He comes from a heritage of subsistence farmers, but climate change has changed this reality for him. In the 80s, he left his small farming village, land that his family has lived on for generations, because it was becoming unfarmable. I first visited his village in 2008, when I was far too young to understand the changes that were going on around me. Since my initial visit, my cousins report that every few years the rivers seem a little drier, the croplands a little smaller, and the trees a little thinner. In my most recent visit 2 years ago, I witnessed the larger consequences of this change. Frail animals unable to find land to eat, grass to eat, shrinking ponds with dwindling amounts of fish, and the unmistakable cracks in the ground of a forming desert. I was terrified by this rapid change in my father's home, and I became obsessed with environmental injustice, the unequal and devastating consequences of climate change. Many Malians are victims of this climate crisis, but have done so little to contribute to it. And Mali isn't alone in this. Around the world, developing countries suffer the consequences of decades of European and US pollution. After 2 months in Mali, I came back to the United States ready to take on environmental injustice. But I arrived home to see that we have our own environmental problems. Frequent and more powerful storms and wildfires have devastated our nation, leaving our most vulnerable populations at greater risk. Decreasing crop yield has hiked up produce prices, making healthy and fresh food inaccessible to low-income communities. Our nation's dependency and unwavering commitment to fossil fuels poisons our air and water, leaving even more people with avoidable health problems. Flint, Michigan still doesn't have clean water, by the way. In the 10 years since my first visit, many of my relatives have had to leave their village in search of the city in search of new jobs. Many are involved in solar and hydroelectric power, the two main sources of energy in Mali. When I returned back to the United States 2 years ago, I was inspired to find similar changes, but I came back to empty promises. Our time is running out. We need a new Green Deal. The global issue of environmental injustice is what brought me to this country. It is why I study international relations here at the Watson and why I'm also pairing that with environmental studies. I'm doing my part. Tom Perez and Democratic leadership, it's time for you to do yours or step aside and let other people lead.